stop. Today I am in front of you in a bikini, completely unposed, completely casual. No makeup. Okay, my back's starting to hurt. My lower back's starting to hurt. Long story short, I'm sick of being pale. I'm sick of my summer shade foundation being labeled snow. I want it to look like I go outside once in a while, even though I don't. I'm gonna start adding color to this very blank canvas, but I'm gonna let Tan Elizabeth take it from here with a little voiceover. I feel super confident when I'm holding this mini microphone. I feel like I know what I'm saying. Even if it's not important, I feel like I have to get it out there. You know what I mean? I feel like you should have a permit to hold one of these because these on the street interviews that I'm seeing, some people are a little bit too confident. Okay, so maybe we should, put these behind some kind of background check. Not everyone needs a microphone. And maybe me included, who knows? Today, we're talking about self-tanning. You guys know that I'm pale 99.9% of the time. It doesn't matter the season. It doesn't matter the reason. It didn't even matter when I lived in Florida. I am just always pale. I stay my ass at home. And if you were here during those days when I lived in Florida, you guys might remember me being somewhat tan. And that is because I used to self-tan religiously back then. But then I moved to Michigan and I didn't live in the Sunshine State anymore. And it was a little bit more common to see people who were pale and no one really judged other people for it. Maybe people didn't judge in Florida, but it seemed like they did. Long story short, I didn't feel pressured to self-tan and I just stayed pale. And some of that was because I was a little bit lazy, to be honest. But today, that is changing. Today, I'm going to be taking you guys through my self-tan routine. I'm going to be trying out a new tan as well, which I'm super excited for. I'm also going to be going over the pros and cons of self-tanning because I don't think a lot of people mention the reality of it. That makes it sound way more serious than it is, but you know what I mean. So if you're new to self-tanning or you're thinking about doing this, I hope this video is helpful. First things first, let's start with the most important thing about self-tanning, and that is the prep. I start off with a shower. I exfoliate like freaking crazy. You want to make sure you get all the dead skin cells off, so you just want to make sure you're using something a little bit more abrasive than a regular loofah or a washcloth. I will admit, okay, TikTok got the best of me and I was influenced to buy this net sponge. I got it off of Amazon though. It's great for daily use, but I also feel like it's strong enough to get all the dead skin cells off that you need. I used to use a tan removing and skin polishing glove from Loving Tan, but I will say it was a little bit tedious to use after some time, especially when I'm just trying to get it over with and done. I feel like this kind of slips a little bit. Don't get me wrong, it works great, and if this is something you're looking for, I would recommend it, but I also prefer this just because it gets into all the hard to reach places. I've talked about struggling with back knee before, and this has definitely helped me clear up my back knee and like these little spots that I used to get on my arms. And I swear this video is not sponsored by a damn sponge, but I will say I also like that the soap washes off super easily and it dries super easily as well, which is what I used to have an issue with loofahs. I felt like there was a lot of bacteria buildup, and every single time I tried to get rid of the soap and like the suds from the loofah, I swear it seemed like it was just multiplying. Like there was no way to get rid of it. This, on the other hand, I run it through the water for like 2 seconds and all the soap is gone. So just saying, 10 out of 10 would recommend. I'll link it down below and I'll have it in my Amazon storefront as well. If this is something you think you need in your life, I would definitely recommend it because it has changed mine. So just mentioning it. Then after exfoliating, I shave. I know that there's some people that like to shave after they tan just to avoid the strawberry legs or the strawberry skin that they could get. Personally, I do it before because I feel like if I did it after I applied the tan, it would just strip the tan off. And I personally want it as even as possible and I need all the color I can get. So that's totally up to you. You can also shave the night prior, but I would definitely save exfoliating for the same day. After the shower, I make sure to dry off completely. No water, no dampness. I also avoid putting lotion on just because I don't want anything to mess with the application of the self-tan later on. Something important to note though is the only spots that I do apply lotion is to my wrists, my elbows, my knees, my ankles, and my feet, just because I don't want any excess tan to kind of pool around that area or just overdevelop in that area. I feel like those spots are usually a dead giveaway if someone self-tan. And I personally am trying to avoid a self-tan self-report as much as possible. And I mentioned I was trying out a new self-tan today. I am trying out the Bondi Sands Sapphire Cool Tone 1 Hour Express Tan. It says you could leave it on for an hour, but then it also says for best results, leave it on for 3. So that's what I'm doing. I recently found out that I was cool tone, so I really wanted to get this Technicolor Bondi Sands Sapphire try. If you guys aren't new here to my channel, then you guys know that I've used Loving Tan religiously before. It was the only self-tan that I've ever used, I'm pretty sure. I would recommend. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just wanted to try out the cool toned one, to be honest. And it's crazy that I used to use the ultra dark in Loving Tan, and I don't know if this is because I'm just not living in Florida anymore and my base tan is way lighter, but I went for the medium, and I also read that this is for lighter skin tones, so I just kind of went for a more subtle looking self-tan, at least for my first time back into the groove of self-tanning. This line also comes with a face serum, but I was a little bit too nervous to use it, and you'll see why. I am using a self-tan mitt that I got from a Loving Tan purchase years and years ago, but if you don't have a self-tan mitt, I used to use a black sock with a plastic bag underneath, and I used that to apply my self-tan at one point. So I mean, whatever works, you know, I'm not gonna judge you. If I remember correctly, Loving Tan usually does have promo codes for free self-tanning mitt with a self-tan purchase on their website, which is something to consider. Just throwing that out there. Once again, not sponsored, just letting you know. Now, applying the tan is pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna wanna make sure you're not missing any spots, and I feel like the difference in your skin tone versus the mousse really helps with seeing if you missed anything. It's pretty obvious, so definitely make sure you're doing it in good lighting, or you have a friend or a partner come over and make sure that you haven't missed any spots. Ideally, you're gonna wanna apply this naked, but this isn't that kind of site, okay? When applying the self-tan to the areas that I did lotion a little bit earlier, I use the excess that's left on the mitt, and I don't put any extra pumps on it while applying to those spots, because once again, I don't want those spots to overdevelop. And if I'm home alone applying self-tan and I don't have anyone to help me out applying the tan to my back, I would put my mitt on a hairbrush and I would just use it like that. But also Loving Tan and maybe even Bondi Sands, I'm sure there's a lot of other tanning brands out there that have a special applicator for your back, but I feel like a brush with the mitt on it works just fine, I think. I will say, looking back, I was a little bit nervous applying the tan because it looked a tinge green. Once the tan is applied, I make sure to put on some baggy, oversized sweats that I do not care to ruin, because remember, you're going to be sticky, you're going to have orange or green tinged liquid on you. That doesn't sound the best, but I'm just letting you know. Before you put the sweats on, make sure you let the tan dry off a little bit. And then personally, I just go and potato out on the couch and just lay out flat like a board. I just try to avoid any activity that's going to make me either sweat or sitting in a certain way that's going to give me awkward lines of how the tan is going to develop. But now that we're at the segment where I'm letting the tan develop, let me talk about the pros and cons of self-tanning, because I feel like not a lot of people talk about it. Start with the pros. Reduced risk of sun damage. Of course, that's like the most important thing. I want to avoid sun damage. I want to take care of my skin. I want to remain healthy. Growing up in Florida, the risk of skin cancer was always brought to my attention, and it scared me to my core growing up, as it should, because it's very serious. So that's one huge pro. Another pro is instant results. When I'm not recording this whole routine takes me about 30 minutes, and then I have an excuse to sit on my couch for like 3 hours. Doesn't get better than that. Another pro is that you have a self-tan year-round. When I first moved to Michigan and I was still in my routine of self-tanning, I remember it being winter and me just being glowy and bronzed, stunting every single time I left the house. And another pro that I want to mention is that it is way less time consuming, because I cannot stress enough how boring it is to tan. Now for the cons, and I do have quite a few cons. Beauty is pain, I guess, so let's go through the cons. Respectfully, you will smell like a penny. I have tried Loving Tan and now I have tried Bondi Sands, and both of them make me smell like pocket change. The smell does go away after the first couple washes, but it's still something to know. Another con is that you're always going to be aware that you're trying to preserve your self-tan. So some things that you do naturally, you're going to want to try to avoid doing them because you're trying to preserve your self-tan. When I'm gaming, when I'm working, when I'm doing anything at my PC, I always sit with my knees up. When I'm self-tanned, I have to try to avoid that behavior, because not only am I slouched over, so then I have lines right here and I get warm, or maybe it's just the fact that my skin's touching my own skin. You're just gonna get naturally moist or damp in that area, for lack of a better explanation. And I generally want to avoid that because that's where the tan starts leaving first. I remember going on a gaming binge and I was just in my office sitting with my knees up for a very long time. I got up, noticed that the back of my leg was white, like right behind my knee, so much of my tan went away. Obviously not all of it went away, but you could definitely tell the difference. And that happens in a lot of spots. Like I said, it happens in your stomach area, it happens between my cleavage, and it happens in my underarms as well. It's just natural, it sucks, but there are certain things that you can do to avoid that happening faster. Another thing to note is that if you're going to self-tan, the first week, you're gonna look great. You're gonna look lovely. I cannot guarantee that it's gonna look that great the following week. And if you're new to self-tanning, you're going to want to try to preserve your self-tan as much as possible. So you're gonna think, I probably shouldn't exfoliate because I want the tan to stay on. That is not the case, at least for me. I remember when I first started self-tanning, I also was like, I just wanna preserve, I'm gonna pat dry, I'm gonna make sure to not go too hard on the exfoliating. And while that did prevent my tan from fading away, it did make it more obvious at the spots that naturally kind of go away faster. It just made it look really splotchy in comparison, if that makes sense. So would you rather your tan fade gradually, somewhat cohesively, or would you rather be super tan here, but in this area, you're like blinding people? What would you rather? There are self-tan removers that I've used before and they have worked great. And there's also ways to remove your self-tan at home. One time I tried baking soda and lemon. Don't try that after shaving. But I have used store-bought self-tan removers as well, and they have worked great. And if you want to use that towards the end of your self-tan lifespan, and I think that that would be a great way to kind of ease out of the first cycle and kind of prep yourself for the next self-tan that you're gonna do. Something that I want to mention, and if you take anything away from this video, let it be this: do not layer a new self-tan on an old self-tan that you have not exfoliated and gotten rid of, because it will look so splotchy, so messy. Please do not do it. I personally have not heard of a self-tan mousse that kind of fades away gradually without it being somewhat patchy in certain areas. I do think lotions or buildable self-tan lotions have a better kind of rep for that. So if you guys want me to try that out and review it, definitely let me know. But after I've sat around for the recommended amount of time, I go and hop in the shower. I don't do a hot shower. I try not to get too sweaty, too steamy. I don't want the self-tan to go away. Like I said, after you self-tan, you are going to think about every single action. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm very critical and I'm like a perfectionist, and because of that, I'm just very over analyzing every single thing I do. So maybe you are more sane than I am. This is the result after my tan. I'm gonna add in the before and after here as well. Overall, I do think it's worth it. My first impression of the Technicolor Bondi Sand Sapphire Cool Tone. Oh my, this is such a freaking mouthful. My first impression of this is that I feel like it might be a little bit too dark for my skin tone. Let me know what you guys think. Do I look like I go outside, or do I look like I rolled around in Cheeto dust? Also, it might not be too dark for me. I just might have gotten used to being the same shade as the wall behind me, so it just might be a little shock for the eye for me. But I think next time I'm not gonna reach for this one, just because this doesn't come in different shades. I might just stick to the Loving Tan brand and go for the light, not even the medium, which is crazy because I used to do ultra dark. Come on now. That's it for today's video. I hope it was helpful and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any other questions about self-tanning, let me know down in the comments below and I'll make sure to answer them. And if you want to see anything else from me, also let me know down there as well. Remember to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll leave my social medias up here on the screen, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I really like this mic. I feel like I can